Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Produce Buzzers podcast. We are so happy you have joined us today, and I think you will be too after the show is over, because you will learn a lot about fresh fruits and vegetables, how to select and store them, how to prepare and cook them, and surprising facts about their history and origin. We hope it inspires you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, not only for your health, but also for your delight and pleasure as you explore their amazing world of taste and delicious flavors. Eating more of them will transform your life in so many positive ways. So settle back, relax, and get ready for another delicious adventure with the Produce Buzzers. Greetings, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, and welcome to another delicious episode of the Produce Buzzers podcast. I'm Edwin Stepp, your host and executive editor of ProduceBuzz.com. I'm joined once again by Teresa Nolan, the founder and president of Produce Buzz, along with Rick Stepp, a contributing editor to Produce Buzz. Our beloved Cynthia Benedetto can't be with us today, but she'll be back on a future broadcast, I'm sure. So anyway, today, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, our guest this week has great success in her career, even though she has lately been working for peanuts. And she's always close to being in hot water. Despite that, she has had accomplishments in a range of activities, from science and botany to sociology and marketing, and she is an award-winning equestrian. Our guest today is Lauren Marcinkowski, the CEO of Luray Peanut Company in Hardeeville, South Carolina. She is going to tell us about a groundbreaking new peanut product. Get it? Groundbreaking?
Got it.
You know, you got to break the ground to get the peanuts, right? So yes, Luray Peanut has a new packaging of peanuts that's coming soon to a grocery store near you. And we will get into that in just a minute. But first, a little more about Lauren's fields of endeavors. After beginning her studies at Savannah College of Art and Design, Lauren transferred to Carleton College, receiving a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology and Anthropology. She then went on to earn a master's in Business Administration from the Parker College of Business at Georgia Southern University. Growing up, Lauren had several personal accomplishments. She was a science enthusiast who presented to the American Academy of Science at just 14 years old about allelopathy. Allelopathy is a survival mechanism that allows certain plants to compete with and often destroy nearby plants by inhibiting seed sprouting or root development or nutrient uptake. Her botanical discovery about goldenrod as an allelopathic plant won multiple awards at the International Science Fair. As an equestrian, Lauren placed 5th while representing the United States for the Savannah College of Art and Design at an intercollegiate Nations Cup competition in Germany. That same year, Lauren rode her mare, Moondance, to the American Horse Show Association Horse of the Year in the Working Conformation Division, that is the 4-foot hunter jumper division. As a sociology anthropology major at Carleton College in Minnesota, Lauren's personal experiences in Hurricane Katrina were turned into her thesis. Her studies of rumor networking in communities under stress were presented on National Public Radio, and she had the honor of participating in several NPR panels about the Katrina crisis. Lauren's paper was later published by several journals and is still used as a teaching tool at Harvard University. Lauren's effective leadership has continued when she started the Levy Group, a consulting business focused on digital marketing. The Levy Group focused on the construction industry in the Savannah region. Her accomplishments were recognized by the Hilton Head Area Home Builders Association, who hosted Lauren on their YouTube channel as part of an expert panel providing advice to those within the construction sector responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now that's quite a resume, and nothing in there about peanuts.
I have to hand it to our director of marketing. That is a very in-depth bio.
Yeah, but I loved it all. I was, I was tempted to shorten it and cut some things out, but I was just amazed at the range of things that you've done. So, but anyway, Lauren, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. So we met you at a produce convention, the Southeast Produce Council Expo in Orlando just a few weeks ago. And we were learning about your company, the Lurie Peanut Company. There's nothing in that bio about peanuts. I'm surprised. So we're very eager though to focus in on the peanuts because this is a show about fresh fruits and vegetables and nuts. We are the nuts usually, but anyway. But tell us more about your background and how you got into the world of peanuts.
Well, so we were really founded by Corin Bowers, who is he's a peanut farmer here in South Carolina. Actually, I think the largest peanut farmer in South Carolina, who is a family friend. We grew up together hunting and fishing and what have you in South Carolina. And when I started my consulting company, he had came to me and said, we've started this endeavor and I really want your help. And so I jumped in, and the more we got going, he kept saying, don't you want to run the company? I said, no. But the more we got into it, the more I got into it, and it became a real passion of mine. We work really well together. And so I took over the company in November of 2021 as the CEO. I passed my clients off to someone else and really dove in 110% and have loved it. It's a great fit for me. We grew up in the low country. My family was actually in sugar, not peanuts, and we farmed a lot of timber. But we were kind of neighbors of the Bowers, have always known each other. And so it was a little bit of a neutral transition, I guess.
When you say low country, that's the southernmost part of South Carolina. Is that
yes?
What does that mean?
Savannah.
Low country and
Yep.
Savannah. Okay.
Yep, it's kind of that Savannah, Georgia, up through Charleston corridor.
Right.
Yep.
Which Hardyville, where you're located, is right next to Savannah almost. Right? It's right.
It is. I mean, it's pretty much a suburb of Savannah at this point.
Yeah, just across this border from Georgia
Yes.
into South Carolina. Yeah.
You look right across the river.
Oh, cool. Yeah, very nice. So you did grow up in a farming world. You said your family grew sugar and timber.
Yep. They we primarily harvested timber. Like farming wise, it was mostly timber. We had a sugar company, Savannah Foods. It was the Dixie Crystal Sugar brand here in Savannah that we sold in the late 90s. So we kind of got out of it. So I never got to work so much in the company, but definitely was around and got dragged to the sugar plant.
Yeah, you were a little young, but in the 90s, I would think, but you were also going off the science fairs presenting.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I've always had, a love for agriculture and anything outdoors, really. So Corin Bowers and we grew up hunting, fishing, all the good old country mischief when we were kids. So we've known each other forever.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're like childhood friends that stayed in touch, and that's great. Yeah. So has he always been in the peanut farming business?
He's a generational farmer. Yes, actually, his father was on the National Peanut Board for years and years. And really is an engineer by training. He went to the University of South Carolina and but came home and started the farm. And his background and his training in engineering has led to a lot of revolutionary ideas like this one with our microwavable film. And this one really has been, I think, taken off the most, other than he's got a lot of, he would be a fascinating guest for you all. He's got a lot of things that he's done with crop yield that have been amazing.
Well, that's great. Well, tell us more about that leads to the next question, more right into the Lurie Peanut Company. First of all, where does that name come from? And then secondly, well, you've already told us a bit how it got started. Yeah. And then we'll get to some of the products you're getting ready to market.
Lurie is the little town where the peanut farm is.
Oh, okay. Lurie. Sorry.
And also the name of Corin's dog. So we had to name the company after the dog. Of course.
Oh, okay.
What,
What kind of dog?
he's an English pointer,
Okay.
really
Yeah.
beautiful dog.
Yeah,
So
I've seen that.
um, yeah.
You must
But
have grown up bird hunting.
yes, we grew up hunting a lot of birds. We did. If it flies, we shoot it. Is pretty much around here.
Maybe weather balloons too. You should those know.
You know what? It did finally get shot down when it got to South Carolina.
Yeah, that's right. It was one of you guys, was it?
um, but anyway, so really, Corin, it was all of his idea. He came to me and said, I've got this idea for taking the roadside snack and putting it in this microwavable bag where we could produce it at the volume that we could put it in every grocery store in the United States. And I said, huh, you don't say. And at first I thought, well, I wonder how much that would catch on. And, after doing a little bit of market research, realized that, everybody in the South loves boiled peanuts, and it's really starting to spread into the other parts of the country. And I think that's mostly because what we've discovered is the rest of the world eats them boiled. We really here in the US,
right.
Yeah, cuisine wise, we are the crazy people that roast peanuts here. And so we even took it so far as we partnered with an international broker out of Florida that we just had the first food show in Dubai about 2 weeks ago. So we'll see how it catches on. I don't want to make any promises, but we are looking into, being the first to export boiled peanuts.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, a lot of our listeners, we have a lot of listeners in the South, but I know we have listeners all over the country and into Canada, and some even internationally. It's growing. And they probably aren't too well aware of boiled peanuts. And maybe some of them are even shocked right now. Boiled peanuts? But talk about boiled peanuts, the snack, and how popular they are in South Carolina and in the South, and what makes them different.
Well, okay. So first of all, growing up, we all eat them boiled here in the South. There's a long history of the boiled peanut. I don't know how in depth you want me to get with this.
You can go as in the depth as you want. I think the history is interesting.
You know what? The history is really interesting. The peanut itself, it evolved in South America, really kind of right there in Peru. And the Peruvians actually considered it a status symbol and even used the peanut as money, which is kind of funny if you think about today now working for peanut.
Right. That's interesting.
It, right.
Yeah.
And then it was exported by the Spanish and the Portuguese to Europe and Africa. So actually the Europeans really started using it in cuisine before the United States, and then made its way back across the ocean to the US via the slave trade, kind of in an interesting circle. And primarily we used it as animal feed first here in the US, but then was discovered that it had such incredible nutritional properties that people started using them in cuisine. And so really roasting came a lot later. So they really were primarily eaten boiled when they first made it to the US. So, but it was very much a Southern thing because peanuts are grown here in the South, obviously, and at the time was very seasonal. So it's been kind of passed down from generation to generation. And when I was a child, you could find it on the roadside. They have these amazing roadside stands, big cauldrons of boiled peanuts with amazing recipes.
Yeah.
We grew up going down to Tybee Island in the summers, and you would always stop at Davis Produce, get your boiled peanuts, go down to the beach. But, like everything, paradise is being developed, and those roadside stands are going by the wayside. You don't find them as much.
Right.
But we still have this nostalgic snack that people love, and people want them in stadiums, watching ball games. And so what we did was basically take that nostalgic snack, figure out how to produce it at large volumes. And we have a fresh frozen product bag, so you can grab it in the produce section, take it home, throw it in your microwave, and have hot boiled peanuts just like you did when you were a kid.
Oh, wow. Very good.
So I don't know. I don't remember exactly where I was going with the initial question.
No, that's exactly where I wanted you to go. I think because probably most of our audience have never tried boiled peanuts. So I would venture to say most of them have heard of them, but a lot of people probably have never thought about boiling a peanut. So I think that's what's fascinating, what's interesting, and how delicious they can be. I think a lot of people may be saying, "Oh, that doesn't sound great." My ex-wife her family was from Georgia, and she's been spreading the gospel of boiled peanuts in California for many, many years. And every Thanksgiving, she makes a big pot of them and gives them out to her friends. And she's converting a lot of people. So it is a product that can take on. So
I love that. Yeah. Well, and it is what's great because it also, when you boil them, they absorb the spices that you boil them with. So they can take on so many dimensional flavors.
yeah,
That's
right.
the fun part about boiled peanuts.
Right. And that's something I've not tried. I don't think she does. She just does them in the traditional way with the salt, boil them for 24 hours or whatever. She would boil them overnight. But when I saw your products with the different seasonings, that's very interesting. Tell us about which seasonings work best.
Well, right now we have the original salted, which is probably like your wife makes, just a little bit of salt. Well, I mean, we're Southern, so it's really a lot of salt.
Right. I know she put quite a bit in.
Exactly. And then the Cajun, we've got like a Louisiana Cajun. It's just a little bit of red pepper heat. It's not really spicy. It's more of a heat. Those are the two flavors we've gone to market with first, but you can get pretty creative. I mean, I know a lot of people at home who boil them with like smoked turkey wings or, hog neck. That's a big one. Like if you get really into the country here, you get like hog back or hog neck. You boil them with meat and vegetables. That's on a really dimensional flavor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds delicious. What about sweet flavors? Do they work well if you try to do it with something sweet as opposed to savory?
And you can get, it's not particularly popular, but you can get really creative. There's a boiled peanut festival here in Bluffton, just a few miles from our offices.
Oh, wow.
We have a cook-off every year, and there's a sweet category, kind of dessert-like. And oftentimes people get into curries and they get very creative.
Curry. Yeah, that would be very good because, I think the Indians use a lot in their curries, and so that the Thai cuisine has peanuts quite often. So that does sound great.
Chinese.
Are they always boiled in the shell?
For the most, so ours are, yes, like the way that we have them. And actually, really, if you want to start getting into the health benefits of the boiled peanut, a lot of the micronutrients that the boiled peanut has versus the roasted peanut, excuse me, they contain those micronutrients because it's absorbed from the skin and the shell of the peanut.
Oh.
So that's why we boil them in the nut. Now, if you get into some of the Chinese cuisines, they'll shell them first because they've actually got a dough, which I can't remember the name of the dough, but they make it from a boiled peanut and fry it as a dessert, which is delicious.
Wow. I've never had that before. Sounds interesting. So a lot of those micronutrients are coming from the shell.
Or the skin. It's interesting. There's a lot of research and kind of going back and forth right now. It's not really clear if it's coming from the peanut skin or the peanut shell. The research points towards the shell because obviously when you roast a peanut, you eat the skin with it, right? If you're cracking it open.
Right.
And a roasted peanut really does not appear to have all of the micronutrients and what have you of the boiled peanut.
Interesting. Yeah. So that you've got that kind of broth that's left over, and I know the way that my wife trained me to eat them was you kind of stick the shell in your mouth and give it kind of suck on it a little bit and then crack it and then pop those peanuts out. It's really a fun thing to eat as well as delicious.
It is fun. Yeah, we've got a big Instagram debate going on right now. Is the proper way to eat.
Oh, I love it.
Yes. Actually, even at the dinner table last night in preparation for this interview, my mother and father were arguing over how to eat. My mother was saying that she has grown up in the South and she breaks it open and takes the kernel out, right? and eat.
Okay.
My father was saying, "That's ridiculous. You suck on the peanut juice. That's not how you do it." That was like, I should be recording this.
That sounds like kind of maybe a etiquette thing. You know, your mother seems like was raised very refined, and maybe your father was a little more down to earth.
That is fair. That is a fair observation.
Yeah, but yeah, I love just cracking it with my teeth, you know, to get the
Yep.
cracking started. And it's not as, to me, it's not as messy as trying to open it. But anyway,
That
we'll join that debate. I can't wait to see some of that.
You get all the flavor and juice out of it.
Right, exactly. Nothing's wasted. It doesn't drip all over you instead. Well, since we're talking about nutrition, let's get into that. What can you tell us about the nutrition of a boiled peanut versus, you've told us a little bit that they are more nutritious, but can you get into some specifics about what makes
Oh,
what is
absolutely.
happening? Okay.
So, I mean, the big thing is the protein content. That's where we really get into. And obviously, you know, a peanut is a legume. It's not
Right.
a tree nut. So it has substantially higher protein content than any of the tree nuts. Possibly an almond is pretty up there, but I mean, the peanut still surpasses it by a long
Interesting.
shot. And then you've got soybeans as far as protein per unit. They come close. The interesting
So let me I want to clarify that because this is a surprise to me. Peanuts have more protein than soybeans?
They do. They're pretty comparable. Okay. But here's the big thing about soy protein. So it's actually contaminated by phytic acid, which bonds to the essential minerals in our diet, and it chelates or ties up those minerals, so we can't absorb them. So like if, you know, or you can, I mean, you can process the phytic acid out, but most of the time when you eat a soybean, it's not processed that way. It's got high levels of phytic acid. So like if for a vegan diet, someone who's vegan who has a primarily soy-based protein diet, they have to pay attention to that because it can really interfere with the ability to absorb essential minerals like iron. Peanuts only have a trace amount of phytic acid, so it's not a problem. So it's a much better protein source than soy.
Okay.
And then when you boil them, they, like you said, we absorb a lot of those minerals, and the biggest one being resveratrol, the same thing you find in wine that helps the heart healthy, et cetera, you know. So the boiled peanut specifically is actually been labeled a superfood by the American Diabetes Association. It's a heart healthy protein that's easily digestible and really sustainable. That's the other, like, the really big thing about it is, you know, everybody talks about sustainable sources of protein right now. We really think it's the most sustainable source of protein on the planet.
That makes sense. You know, legumes do put back nitrogen, or they use less nitrogen. How does that work? Do legumes put nitrogen back in, or do they just use less of it? And
they're what's called a nitrogen fixer. So yes, they do put nitrogen back into the soil, which is why they're used oftentimes in rotation, especially with crops like cotton that take nitrogen out of the soil.
Right.
And I think we talked at one point about George Washington Carver, who was the gentleman, right, who discovered that this property that the peanut has. So they're kind of a natural fertilizer. So you would see a much larger crop yield with cotton the following year when planted in rotation with the peanut.
Right. Back to the nutrition. Did we cover that in your estimation, or is there more to say about the nutrition?
Well, I think there's a lot more to say about that. I mean, we really are trying to spread the news about the nutrition of the boiled peanut, because I really do think it's important. And, you know, the boiled peanut has about 40% fewer calories than the roasted peanut.
Wow.
When you look at pound for pound, the protein that you're getting, it is a much healthier way to eat peanuts. And there are numerous studies out about the health benefits of the peanut, helping with controlling weight. The Aristotle study, and I don't know if you're familiar, they're a highly regarded European group of scientists. So they put out a lot of peer-reviewed journals and papers every year. But in 2021, they did a study that really proves that the regular consumption of peanuts actually improves memory. And so like if you're looking at the nutritional aspects of what we eat and how humans thrive, we're finding more and more about peanuts and how they help us with memory, with our heart, with, I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And that's where we're really excited about the research that's coming out about specifically boiled peanuts with all the essential amino acids and minerals and everything in your diet that we need. And then if you look at the environmental impact of this, you know, you can actually, here in the South, you can grow 6,000 pounds of peanuts per acre.
How does
So
that compare to other crops? It
it's
must be a lot. That figure
It-
went over my head, but
it's almost double. And then they take about a tenth of the water as a tree nut,
oh,
right?
wow.
So, and then you add in, like, it's a nitrogen fixer. So you can rotate it with crops. I mean, the list keeps going on and on and on about this amazing sustainable protein that we have that doesn't have the complications, I suppose, of soy. And, you know, I don't know about a lot of you like out there listening, but I have a hard time digesting soy. I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of people on the planet like that. Soy is sometimes hard to digest for humans, whereas a boiled peanut in particular is not. It's very easily digestible. So when you start getting into all this these nutrition facts, it's an incredible food
It
that
is.
we should be eating, you know, 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
The Aristotle, they did a similar study actually in women with controlling weight, that they found that women who eat peanuts 3 to 4 times a week have a much easier time controlling weight and diabetes, especially with their glucose levels. You know, and I mean, you can keep going.
This is fascinating to me
Right.
and very exciting because I know how in love my wife was with boiled peanuts, and I kind of went, well, that's quaint, that's cute, but this is something really remarkable. I've been very enlightened today.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you make peanut butter from boiled peanuts?
Oh yeah, you can make a peanut spread. Absolutely. It's kind of like a peanut butter. Yes, we're working on some things, but you can make a very similar product to peanut butter.
And I'm under the impression that everything you buy in the store would be roasted peanuts.
Yes. Right now, all peanut butter comes from roasted peanuts. But I'm setting out to change that.
Good.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you could make bean paste. You know, I've had bean paste, bean curd. You know, and then Oriental cooking, they use a lot of that, and it's can be, you know, it's quite flavorful, and the texture can be somewhat odd sometimes, but doesn't bother me. But I think it might bother. But anyway, that's great. That's a great question, Rick. Hadn't thought about that. And would it be more nutritional? You probably can't answer that fully, but
We would like to say yes.
yeah, it makes sense.
It would certainly have fewer calories
Right.
with the same protein content.
I would imagine you'd have to dehydrate it a bit in order. I mean, it wouldn't be like you wouldn't have the broth from the boiled peanuts to.
No, you have
but
to, yes, you have to emulsify it in a way that it just depends on the consistency of what you want and what you're trying to make with it.
Yeah, right. Well, you raised the name of George Washington Carver, and I know we talked a little bit about him at the conference. I wrote an article about him recently for our webpage, and his amazing work with peanuts, and especially, firstly, in how it kind of saved Southern agriculture as cotton was waning, and put in restoring the soils and teaching people to, you know, to, what do they call it? Alternate the crops. There's another word for that. Crop rotation, right? And putting that nitrogen back in. But also the products that he developed were amazing. He developed over 300 different products from peanuts. What do you know about that? What can you tell us about that?
Well, it was kind of the unintended consequence of crop rotation, right? All of a sudden they found, you know, they had this huge surplus of peanuts.
Yeah.
Went on to find different uses of it, mainly oils, et cetera, you know.
Right.
I mean, but he got into making all kinds of products. I mean, cosmetic products, oils. It was pretty amazing. Wood stain soap. But actually, contrary to popular belief, he did not invent peanut butter. Came a lot later, roasted
Yeah.
a lot later.
Yeah, I don't think I heard that or saw that anywhere. I certainly didn't put it in my article, but it was amazing what he did. He also created alternative meats. I read goose,
Yeah,
duck, chicken, veal.
well, and I think
Out of
he was really the first to discover the nutritional properties of peanuts.
Right.
And that was where you started seeing it like shift from being a feed to a part of cuisine.
Right.
He was a pretty amazing person. And, you know, amazingly, I think only filed what, 3 patents?
Yeah, he didn't file a lot of patents. That was true. And
All
he
of
just
that
wasn't
was-
thinking.
Yeah.
He wasn't focused on making money. Thomas Edison wanted to partner with him and bring him into his laboratory and work with him. And George Washington Carver was honored, but he turned him down because he said, I want to just focus on helping the Black community, you know, progress. And he did not want to, he would have made a lot more money working with Edison. But anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, he was pretty amazing. Well, and if you think about too, when he started out, the peanut was not even officially recognized as a crop.
Oh,
But then by 1940, it was one of the 6 leading crops in the U.S. and the second in the South, kind of in that below the Mason-Dixon line area.
yeah, right.
I mean, he was the peanut man.
That's right.
And you're saying in those days that when George Washington Carver was alive, that they didn't even have peanut butter yet?
No, there was no peanut butter. Nobody, because they didn't roast them at the time.
Wow. I would never have guessed that.
Roasting and peanut butter came much later.
That's amazing. Yeah. So George Washington Carver was born a slave
Yes.
in Missouri, and then he was orphaned just a few years after that. So he was born in 1863 or 4. I can't remember what it was, but so that was his birth. And I don't remember when he died. It was mid 1900s, maybe 1940s or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think early 1940s.
Yeah, but no peanut butter. Yeah.
No peanut butter. But actually, if you think about his legacy, though, born a slave, and then he was accepted into what's now Highland College at first, but then rejected when they found out he was Black.
Right.
And then went on to earn, be the first African-American to earn a Bachelor of Science degree. He did so well there. He got a master's in agriculture. That was unheard of at the time. It is mind-boggling what he accomplished in his life.
Yeah, he really pioneered the way forward and helped so many people. Well, this might be another debate. Do green peanuts make a better boiled peanut or not?
So this is where I get like green versus what. So if we want to get like really into the nitty gritty of this one.
Okay, I do.
So you have green versus raw, right?
Okay.
That's kind of because you really can't boil it like a truly dried roasted nut or, legume. You couldn't boil down. You'd have to emulsify it. But green versus raw is really just a matter of hydration. And it's pretty similar. You do have those connoisseurs out there who swear up and down that a green peanut will make a better boiled peanut. But at the end of the day, all you're really doing is putting water back in it if it's dried out a little bit.
Okay, that's good education there, because I had always heard that when we had produce markets in the South and people were coming to get peanuts to boil them, they would always ask for green peanuts. Of course, you only get those. It's a very short window because once they're harvested, they're going to go dry, right? They're going to.
They do. So really, from an agricultural standpoint, what you're buying in the grocery store, the big bins that you dig the green peanut out of, green quotation, by the time they get to the grocery store in those bins, from an agricultural standpoint, they would be classified as raw because they've dried out enough that they're dehydrated enough to be a raw peanut.
Okay.
So it's a pretty fine line there.
Right. So you said there's green, there's raw, and did you say dry peanuts?
Like, or a dry roasted, yes, like a
Oh,
roasted.
dry roasted after it's roasted, because
Right.
as long as it's not been roasted, you could boil a peanut that's raw, right?
Absolutely.
'Cause
Yeah,
I know
but
that
you're just adding the water content back
Right.
in.
I know my wife would buy just raw peanuts, a big bag of them, and but she would have to boil them for a long time to get get it reconstituted.
Yeah, you do have to boil them. The farther out they are from harvest, the longer you have to boil them to get the hydration back into them.
Yeah, right. Okay, so
Is it
you
best
are
to
you
soak them before you boil them?
It really depends on the recipe and who like a lot of people like to soak them overnight and then start boiling. Some people just boil them, simmer them on low for hours and hours. It really depends. It depends on who you are and which the flavor you're trying to get. It's a science.
I like that.
But
So
Evan, you need to dig into the history of roasted peanuts in the mountains of North Carolina. Why were we selling why were we selling roasted peanuts in the mountains of North Carolina? And you couldn't find boiled peanuts unless you drove down Highway 25 from Hendersonville, North Carolina, towards Greenville. And as soon as you crossed the state line into South Carolina, there were stands that had boiled peanuts.
yeah, it was very interesting. Boiled peanuts were not prevalent here in the mountains when we were growing up. Now I see them quite often, but when we were growing up, you had to go to South Carolina to get them.
Now you could just find them in your grocery store.
Yep,
Yeah.
they're in cans.
I
And
know.
I live in Duluth, Minnesota, and there's a major grocery chain that you could probably guess. The only boiled peanuts I can find are in this store, and they're canned. Yeah.
Well, I apologize for that.
Well,
I
tell
could
us.
make them myself if I wanted to.
That's coming up. While we're on that, tell us the difference between the product you're selling and a canned product.
Well, ours is a fresh frozen product. So we boil them, we flash freeze them, and then we package them into those microwavable bags.
Right.
So it's a much fresher, more tasty product than that's sitting in a can. I mean, it's like anything, like a fresh green bean is much more delicious than a canned green bean, right? So it's a higher quality product that's really, really delicious. And when we flash freeze it, locks in all that taste and freshness. So you pop them
and
in
nutrition too.
Yes, and nutrition, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, it's like a frozen vegetable versus a canned vegetable. I'd much rather have a frozen vegetable. And those are flash frozen just hours after they're harvested usually too. So they actually can compare to a fresh, maybe even better than a fresh green bean because it hasn't been sitting on a shelf for a while.
That's right.
But anyway, so that's interesting. So, okay. Wait for wait for Luray Peanut Company's frozen boiled peanuts. Don't buy those canned things or make them at home yourself.
Don't buy the canned ones.
I think Lauren already gave, I was going to ask you to give our audience a recipe to make them at home if they can't get yours yet. But I think you kind of already did that. You just,
I know. And here's the thing, like if I shared our recipe, I'd probably I could, but then I'd have to kill you all because
right. Got it.
Right.
Okay. We won't do
Have
that.
you also experimented with putting the boiled peanuts in an aseptic plastic container, like the wine in a box type thing, rather than having to take up freezer space?
We are doing a lot of experimenting with packaging right now. I mean, obviously our first to market, it just went to market in March of 2021. So it is a relatively new product that is growing exponentially. But at the end of the day, and if you get into like retort packaging, for example, not to take too much away, there's a lot you can do with shelf stable storage that I think is coming down the pipeline not just for us, but for a lot of companies and produce. There's a lot of breakthroughs in technology right now when it comes to that.
Sure. Very good. Well, what can our listeners do to get their local markets to start stocking Luray boiled peanuts? Is there
Oh,
something
go to
we
those
can do?
produce managers and ask, right? Walk up to that produce manager and demand it.
Okay. And when they're at their next sporting event, ask the concessionaires because you are. Tell us about what's happening there. You think you'll replace roasted peanuts at the sports stadiums? Is that a goal, or
No,
just
I
kind
don't know.
of get in there and
I mean, I would love that, but I don't know if you'll ever replace the roasted peanut.
have to
But
change the seventh inning stretch song too? You know, about
We
buy
might.
me some peanut, buy me some boiled peanuts and crack. Good, Jack.
the cadence is a little, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you could ever do it, but we're working on it. So we are the official peanut of the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Charleston River Dogs. And
Cool.
we're making our way across the Southeast. We've developed what we call the peanut pickoff program it's good alliteration there, right?
That's great. Yeah.
Because it works in football and in baseball. And we are as we go into each market and each community, we are supporting youth sports there in those communities. We really try to be part of the community everywhere we go. So this year with the Jaguars, for example, we gave money for every interception that the Jaguars made at their home games, and we're able to fund their youth football initiatives down there in Jacksonville, which is great. We've got some amazing photos actually from the last youth football camp of the mascot when they put our name on the jerseys. They were really kind to us.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, and that's been fantastic because I'm a big believer in youth sport. I've got boys, and I know how important those youth sports are to the development of young boys. They need them.
Yep. Yep.
You're not teaching them to play hockey, are you?
We have a little problem with ice down here.
No, you don't
let
have
them
a
take
problem.
up hockey. It's a religion. It's not a sport. It's a religion.
It
At
is
least-
it's very true. I went to college up there in Minnesota, where right outside of Minneapolis. I did my undergrad and went to a lot of hockey games, and it is definitely a Midwestern religion. I agree. Down here, football is life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
By far. Okay, well, this has been fun and fascinating and enlightening. I've really, my mind has been opened up here. I thought you had already done that at the conference, but there was a lot more to tell us and open our minds to. I'm really pleased that you joined us. I do want to talk a little bit about some of your personal accomplishments, especially the equestrian.
Oh,
That sounds really interesting.
I really have to hand it to a marketing part. They dug in there, but yes, I started out my first career. I rode horses professionally.
So you were professional. Wow.
I did for many years, and then with kids, there's so much travel involved.
Yeah.
With school age children, it became
impossible. Right.
It was just. It was
I
really
wish our colleague Cynthia had been here because she's not herself an equestrian. She rides and she helps out taking care of horses. But her daughter, I think, is getting into equestrian events, and she knows a lot about it. She was bummed that she couldn't be here to talk to you about that. But anyway,
we have a cousin who went through Randolph College in Virginia in their equestrian program, and her name is Shannon Stepp. She's the daughter of our first cousin. And I don't know, did you ever compete against Randolph College when you were?
I did. Probably more. It would just depend on the year. They were not in our zone or conference, but what we would sometimes, if they made it to nationals, we would see them.
Sure. And I think she's younger than you also.
Did you ever participate in? Oh, sorry, Rick.
Yeah.
Did you ever participate in any events in Tryon, North Carolina?
Oh, yes. I've spent a lot of time in Tryon. They have a fantastic new facility. Well, newer. It's now I'm kind of dated. It's not as new anymore.
Right. But it is a beautiful facility for sure. And of course,
it's a really beautiful facility.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, the steeplechase. That was the big thing. The Tryon steeplechase was a big event.
There's a lot of horses in Tryon.
Yeah.
And on the farm that we farmed in down near Tryon, a lot of fox hunting. They would come through on Sundays with their red suits and ride right through the farm.
Yep. They've
Did you do that too? Did you do?
I've done some fox hunting. Yeah, I've done a little bit of everything. I really grew up. So my mother and really my great aunt, they both rode. Our family, we even, believe it or not, we have horses in the Hunter Jumper Hall of Fame. I mean, I really like,
Wow.
yeah, as a child, we were in it. Grew up riding, and I fell in love with it right away. So, and my parents let me take it as far as I wanted, and I did great things with it.
That's amazing.
But I was
Congratulations.
very spoiled. I always had very nice horses and very supportive parents.
Right. So I
And
think
did
go ahead, Rick.
Carleton College have an equestrian team? I'm guessing not.
Well, they had a club. It was a club when I started, and we actually, my roommate and I, my sophomore roommate, we started the competitive team there. Kind of off and on. It was interesting. We got into the history of it. They had a competitive team throughout the 80s, and it kind of waned. It kind of came and went. But they did really well. We went so far as to make it through regionals into the zone competition 2 years, and then had myself and several others go on to the national horse show from Carleton. So we did all right with it.
I would never have guessed that. I just a question out of the blue.
But we were totally student run. We had a really great group of motivated young women at Carleton during those 4 years that we had a blast.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time in that area when my kids grew up in Prior Lake, Minnesota, in sports there, and went to a lot of wrestling tournaments, basketball tournaments.
Indoor sports.
Yeah.
Right. They have the problem with ice, not Georgia or not South Carolina.
Right.
You said you had a problem with ice. No, you don't have a problem with ice. They have the problem with ice.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fun and interesting. But Lauren, we're gonna keep you here, torture you a bit. We have a segment on the podcast called Homegrown, and this Teresa loves her puns.
Are we about to get into dad jokes?
Yes, that's what they are. We don't call them dad jokes. We call them homegrown.
Okay, all right.
Because Teresa loves her puns, and we always have a pun that's related to the subject of the podcast. So she's going to give us our homegrown today, but I'm going to introduce her right quick. So, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, it's time for your favorite segment on the Produce Buzzers podcast. Yes, it's time for Homegrown. No, don't run away. Don't turn the show off. You have to sit and be punished by Teresa with her pun of the day. Teresa, what is the homegrown?
Okay, so why did the peanut run into the police station?
Why did the peanut run into the police station? So we also try to guess these, Lauren. So you got to think it through. Rick, any ideas? Why did the...
Does he want it out of his shell?
No, that's not. No. Lauren, any guesses?
Just feeling a little nutty.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, Teresa.
Because he was assaulted.
All right, that was good.
And he was boiling mad.
Well, I'm sorry, Lauren. We tortured you with that. You had to stick around for it.
Listen, I run a nut company. Peanut jokes and puns are just part of it.
Yeah.
Now with our marketing department, we have started like the first 10 minutes. I'm like, y'all just get them out of the way now. Like, let's just
Right.
start our meeting.
Very good.
Edwin, you have to tell her your Perry Como.
Oh, I forgot about that. My Perry Como story. So we used to have these roadside stands. We had several roadside stands in Western North Carolina, fruit stands, and we sold roasted peanuts, as we told you, with our apples and peaches and all kinds of fruits, things you'd expect. We have one in Saluda, North Carolina, just off of Interstate 26. And a lot of people probably don't know this, but Perry Como, the famous crooner, had a house in Saluda. And I used to run that fruit stand, and he loved roasted peanuts. And when he was in town, he would always come over and ask me to make him a special batch of roasted peanuts because he liked them burnt or almost burnt. I mean, they were on the burnt side.
And that
So
was because of an accident that you made, remember?
Was it? No, I
Yes.
didn't know that.
You accidentally burned them.
Nancy, I don't remember.
No, you told me this. You accidentally burned them, and he came and bought some, and he liked them so much that he came back.
You know, you're right about that. I had completely forgotten about that. I couldn't remember why. Anyway, so he would, you know, every few months or, you know, a couple of times a year at least, he'd show up and he would come over to the fruit stand and I'd make him a batch of burnt peanuts and he'd stand there and talk to me while eating, you know, he wouldn't eat them all up because it was a pretty big batch, but he would eat quite a few of them and just talk to me. He was pretty quiet. He didn't have a lot to say, but he just enjoyed sitting there. And, you know, I would ask him questions about his career. I really didn't know his music that much because, you know, I was a young kid and rock and roll was the only thing I was listening to in those days. But he was a really nice man and it was interesting. So now the funny part about it is, and I'm blanking, Rick, who was it that suggested that?
It was a guy whose nickname was Butter.
Right.
His real name was Adrian Pace, but everybody called him Butter. And he was like Goober from the Andy Griffith Show. Literally. I mean, this guy was like Goober.
He worked with us a little bit. He would work at the fruit stand sometimes. But anyway, go ahead. I'll let you tell it, Rick. You know the story.
I can't believe I remember this better than you do. Because I've told this story so many times. That's why I remember it. But he got a deal with Perry Como to do his maintenance work around his house. And so he was getting to know him pretty well. And then remember, Edwin, Butter came to you with a brilliant idea.
Yeah, you tell it. Go ahead. You finish.
I can't believe that I'm going to have to tell your story.
No, you tell it because you tell it better. You're a better
about
story.
to really embarrass Edwin here with this. So much hesitation and build up. Like,
Yeah. Right. I've told this story at least once a year for the past 40 years. I guess.
That's why you tell it better. So tell it.
So Butter came in and said, "Hey, Edwin, you know what? I'll bet you as much as Perry Como likes them roasted peanuts, we could get him to come down here and sing on Sundays. And we give him all the peanuts he wants for free."
So we were his idea was to hire Perry Como to sing at our stand for peanuts.
literally, there it is again.
True story.
And if we only had him to endorse boiled peanuts, but sorry.
Did you do it? Did you ask him?
No way.
I bet he would have done it.
He might have sung a little bit, but
It would have been right out of the Andy Griffith Show.
that's right.
Saluda is very much like Mayberry.
Yeah, it is. Very much.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we've tortured you enough here. Thank you so much. That's great. We had a great time.
Be back with the grower you mentioned and also your dad on the nutritional thing.
Absolutely. They would both be great guests for you.
Yeah,
Corin,
that would be
especially
fun.
on the cultivation. I keep telling him actually he needs to write a cultivation guide because he is just fascinating development.
Right.
Oh, can you also tell us where to how we can find out which stores sell your product?
Oh yeah, we have a location finder on our website. Actually, if you go in and type in your address, it'll bring up the stores near you.
And what is the website again?
The website is luraypeanut.com, and it's peanut singular, not plural.
Okay.
Luray
is
Luray. Is that correct?
Luray, yes.
Luray.
Okay, great. Yeah, go visit the site and ask your retailers to get some Luray boiled peanuts in the stores for you to try out. Be delicious. All right. Well, thank you again. And I wish you all the best. You've made me an evangelist for boiled peanuts now.
I love it. That's great. We just need to spread the gospel.
Right. All right. Well, good luck. Congratulations on everything. And thanks again for joining us.
I really enjoyed this, though, y'all. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot.
Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Produce Buzzers podcast, brought to you by Produce Buzz, the gathering place for lovers of fresh fruits and veggies. We hope you were entertained a bit and educated a lot about fresh produce. Be sure to join us next time, and please tell your friends to do so as well. Like, share, and comment on our Produce Buzz Facebook page, and check out our website at www.producebuzz.com. There you will find articles about fresh fruits and veggies, how to select, store, and prepare them, as well as lots of interesting facts about all the wonderful bounty the earth provides for us. Until next time, be fruitful and don't forget to veg out.